also know the philosophy. Otherwise, because we are intelligent persons, we can easily get influenced by somebody else telling us something wrong philosophy. That's what happens to innocent people who are not conversant with the right philosophy. They participate in bhajans, kirtans, they take nice prasadam, but they hear something wrong and they don't hear the right thing, they're completely off Krishna consciousness. So that's why Prabhupada wrote so many books. He spoke extensively to all categories of people, trying to make them understand at their level. Conversations, letters, discourses for different kinds of audiences. He was speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking. So we should also hear. When the music, Kirtan and Prasadam is enough actually. Nothing more is required. But because we have got the ability to read, we got the ability to understand because of our developed intelligence, we should also hear, read, and try to understand the philosophy. Okay, thank you for the wonderful kirtan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisheshana Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasavi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Deenatarinam yat kripatamaham vande Paramananda Madhavam yat kripatamaham vande Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So yesterday we heard how Ajamila was freed from the clutches of the Yamadutas by the Vishnudutas. The only reason he was freed was that at the time of death, he helplessly called out the name Narayana. Even though he called out for a son, it's explained by our acharyas. It's not given in the text, Bhagavata text. How did this name work? This is a very important thing to understand. How did this name work? The name of the Supreme Lord, when vibrated by anybody, whether a sinful man or a sinless person, by a devotee, non-devotee, anybody who vibrates the tongue and actually produces the sound of the syllables which contains the syllables which make up this, the name of the Supreme Lord. Hari, 2 syllables is enough. Or Krishna, 2 syllables. Rama, 2 syllables. Or 4 syllables. Narayana. Whatever number of syllables that make up the word which refers to specifically the holy name of the Supreme Lord. Name. So name is a personal attribute. Name is a personal attribute. That means a person has got a name. A person has qualities. A person has activities. A person has paraphernalia. A person has relationship. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. In the Guru Ashtaka it is said, Shri Radhika Madhavayorapara Madhurya Leela Guna Rupa Nama. Leela Guna Rupa Nama. Or Nama Rupa Guna Leela. Name, form, qualities and activities or pastimes. And also the paraphernalia, parikara, and the relationships, relationship with, especially with the devotees, relationship with the devotees. Now, you should understand in the spiritual world, it is completely spirit. Spirit means person. So there are no non-living objects in the spiritual world. In this world, which is characterized by duality, matter and spirit. Matter means all the material non-living objects, including our material body. And spirit means persons, all the living beings, and even the Supreme Lord as a super soul who's present in this material world. But in the spiritual world, only the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Lord, and his devotees, the spirit souls, his pure devotees. So there are no inanimate objects in the spiritual world. But since the material world is described as a reflection of the spiritual world, so whatever we see here is also present in the spiritual world. But here we have persons and we have non-living things, objects. In the spiritual world, there are persons, but there are no non-living objects. So in the spiritual world, a river is not merely some water that flows, a body of water that flows. No. River is a person. Land is a person. Table is a person. Chair is a person. So this is difficult for us to understand in our present condition. But we hear from the scriptures, we hear from the acharyas, we hear from learned devotees, that just like we are taking service from all this table, the furniture, we are taking service from the house we are living in. We are taking service from all the inanimate objects. Similarly, in the spiritual world, the devotees are serving Krishna, so the devotees serve as the table, as the chair, as the river. So Yamuna, river Yamuna, in the material world, our conception of a river is simply some water which is on a mountain top, flows down the mountain, comes down the plains, and joins the ocean. This is our understanding of what a river is in this world. But in the spiritual world, river is a person. River is a person. And river serves Krishna. But in the spiritual world, the service is not just serving Krishna alone. Serving Krishna and his devotees. So Yamuna, river Yamuna serves Krishna with the devotees of Krishna. The gopis, the cowherd boys, anyone. All the devotees. All the devotees of Krishna. Even the mountain, hill, Giri Govardhan. Giri Govardhan serves Krishna, Balaram, the cowherd boys, the cows, the calves, everyone. So this spirit of service and the mood of service is out of love. Here, if we may say, there is some service that one person renders to another, that is more like work. Service is more like work. And that work is done for some money or out of obligation. Correct? In the spiritual world, nobody needs work because everything is provided for by Krishna. Everyone and everything is provided for by Krishna. Actually, even in the material world, Krishna provides everybody. But Krishna does not directly provide like that. He indirectly arranges through the material energy for providing for everyone. Material energy as well as the spiritual energy, the living beings. It's like the mother serves the child. Or material energy provides, Maya provides in various ways for everyone, different things. But in the spiritual world, Krishna through his Yoga Maya provides for everyone, serves everybody. Yoga Maya serves everybody. And here the spirit of work is, I work because I'm obligated, I work because I want something in exchange. Whereas in the spiritual world, everyone is rendering service out of love. Krishna renders service out of love for his devotees. Devotees love Krishna, therefore they serve Krishna out of love. Because Krishna is not in need of any service, because he is full in himself. And devotees, they are provided for by Krishna. So they are not in need either. Then, why should Krishna serve the devotees? Because he loves the devotees. So love predominates in the spiritual world. And the love is so nice that both Krishna and Krishna's devotees forget that Krishna is Supreme Lord. The devotees forget they are always subservient and subordinate to Krishna. So sometimes when the Krishna and cowherd boys are playing, if Krishna wins in some game, then some cowherd boy who is lost will carry Krishna on his back. If Krishna loses the game, Krishna has to carry that cowherd boy on his back. You see? So, the spiritual world, Prabhupada explains, Krishna is, everything is absolute means. The master is the servant is also the master. So when I first read this, I couldn't understand what is the meaning of this. So it is, Krishna is always the master, devotees are always servants, but sometimes the servant will act as the master and the master will act as the servant. How does this happen? Out of love. In loving exchange, the roles can be interchanged. Like Arjuna, even in the material world, when Krishna performs his Leela, Arjuna is always subservient to Krishna. But sometimes, just one time, we know for sure that on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Arjuna had to fight, he actually had Krishna as his chariot driver. He had Krishna as his chariot driver. He could have, actually Arjuna has his chariot driver. Not that Krishna is his chariot driver. No, Krishna is not his chariot driver. But Arjuna requested Krishna to fight in this battle. I want a good chariot driver. And who can be the best chariot driver? Krishna, his own friend. And Krishna lovingly agreed to become Arjuna's chariot driver. You see. But then Krishna performs his Leela also. Especially in the material world, he performs his pastime in such a way, the pastimes serve many different purposes of Krishna. Krishna wants to instruct the living beings who are entangled here in dharma, subject matter of dharma. So through Arjuna, he is speaking Bhagavad Gita, instructing everybody. And for doing so, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna is Arjuna's chariot driver. So he puts Arjuna into illusion. And then Arjuna is bewildered by seeing the kinsmen on the battlefield. And then Arjuna says, under illusion, influence of illusion, Arjuna says, how can I kill my kinsman? And then that's an excuse for Krishna to actually speak the Bhagavad Gita and dispel Arjuna's illusion. But actually, Arjuna is not in need of any instruction of Bhagavad Gita. Through Arjuna, Krishna is instructing all of us. You see? So, Krishna's many different purposes are served by his pastimes. So, this difference between the spiritual world and the material world, even though material world is like a reflection of the spiritual world, but still, the difference always exists. Material world, there is duality of matter and spirit. And spiritual world, there is no duality. Everything is spirit. Everything spirit also means everything is of the same quality as Krishna. So, in the scriptures, in the original Vedas, it said spiritual existence means everything is Brahman. Everything is Brahman. or spirit. So the Mayavadis, they can't understand everything is spirit means, because in this material world, we discriminate between what is spirit and what is matter. We distinctly understand that all non-living things are matter and living persons are not matter. They are living persons. So make a distinction, right? But in the spiritual world, you cannot make that kind of distinction. There is no matter there. There is nothing non-living. Only the living spirit. So the impersonalists make the mistake of thinking there is only spirit. They think only the absolute truth. They can't understand there is variety in spirit. There is variety in spirit. That they are missing out. Brahman has variety. Just like in this material world. This table is matter, chair is matter, everything material is matter. Ultimately, yes. But there is variety. There is variety in matter. So because of this variety, we have the different elements: earth, water, fire, air and sky or space. And we utilize material objects in varieties of ways, because there are varieties of objects, that things we can use because of the varieties of matter. It's like often Prabhupada and all the Vaishnava acharyas give this example that a ball of cotton is cotton essentially in terms of substance. This cotton cloth I am wearing is also essentially cotton. But the ball of cotton doesn't serve the purpose of a piece of cloth or a garment. This cloth is specifically serving as a garment that I can wear. So you cannot use a ball of cotton the same way you can use this piece of cloth or garment. So there is difference between the ball of cotton and the piece of cloth. Substance-wise, both are cotton, but functionally, both are completely different. So a ball of cotton we can use to make a wick, like that. It has got its purpose, it's got its use. This garment, cotton garment, has got its use. Similarly, in the spiritual world, Krishna is spirit, the living entities are also spirit. Devotee is also spirit. Krishna is also spirit, the Lord, Supreme Lord. But Krishna has got his function, Krishna has got his particular position, unique position. Devotees have their functions, devotees have their particular position. And because of this difference in position and function, there is what is called as a relationship. There is loving exchange. Without the distinction, where is the question of love, where is the question of exchange, where is reciprocation, where is relationship? You understand? So impersonalists are completely missing out this truth, this reality. Simply because they hold on to one theory that everything is spirit. Everything is spirit. And also, to negate all material varieties that we have in this material world, these material varieties are absent in the spiritual world. Therefore, the absolute truth is described as formless, nirakar, nirguna, no material qualities. Absolute truth has no material qualities. So, in the scriptures, first of all, it is described what is this material world and what is spiritual. What is material existence and what is spiritual existence. So the distinction is made, material existence consists of this duality of matter and spirit. And spiritual existence, there is no duality of matter and spirit, because spiritual existence is only spirit. So a distinction is made. Only spirit means there is no material variety, there is no material form, there are no material qualities, there are no material attributes at all. So denying all the material qualities, attributes, etc., is to completely negate any tinge of even matter in the spiritual realm. Completely spiritual, 100% pure spirit. Okay, that's what we are actually as living beings, as persons. We are pure spirit. And the absolute truth is pure spirit. But the distinction between the living being and the absolute truth, the supreme truth, absolute truth, there is a distinction also, that one is part, other one is whole, one is very tiny, other one is, the Supreme Spirit is unlimited. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy is Bheda Abheda, the oneness and the difference. Whereas the other philosophies, some are talking of the oneness, some are talking of the differences. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy is the only one that talks about the oneness and the differences simultaneously. And also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says it is inconceivable. Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. It's a complete explanation of the reality. The differences, the oneness, and the inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference. See, here when we study matter and spirit, see the difficulty in understanding what is matter and what is spirit. We cannot have experience of a person, a living person, who is pure spirit without a material body. You take any person. Person is a spirit soul within the body. Okay? And the body, even though it's matter, it has got symptoms of life. It has got symptoms of life. Like we make a distinction, no? Between a living body and a dead body. Living body can talk, can interact. A doctor can actually treat a person who has got sick only if he is living. He cannot treat a dead body. Correct? So we make a distinction between the body of a living person and a dead person. Correct? We make a distinction. So what does it mean? Now, Shastra says living person means is the person is appearing to be living only because of the soul within the body. The body is always a dead body. Matter is always dead matter, without life. Life symptoms are due to spirit. Okay. Now, can we analyze spirit without this body? No, we cannot. We cannot. Because inside this body we search for spirit, there is no spirit. We can see or touch or smell, whatever. Okay? We cannot. Always this question devotees used to ask Prabhupada. How do we prove to common people that there is spirit inside this body, which is actually the source of all consciousness and the living symptoms, etc. So Prabhupada says, spirit soul, the proof of the spirit is consciousness. Because consciousness can never be produced by matter, by material combination. So the only proof of the existence of the soul or the spirit is, one thing is the Shastra, the scriptures, and the other thing is the symptom of the spirit is consciousness. Only two things, that's all. There's no other third way you can actually understand what is the spirit or perceive spirit. Of course, one can get a higher understanding if one practices spiritual life and actually gets realization of the truth about spirit, not only about the spirit but also about the Supreme Spirit or God. When one becomes self-realized, both myself and the Supreme Lord, God realized, then they can actually perceive spirit in a different way. What is that different way? When one is able to come face to face with the Supreme Lord in his completely spiritual form. But till then, only two ways we can perceive spirit is by consciousness and the scriptures, the Shastra. So the difficulty in this material world is we cannot study spirit without the body. So matter and spirit, separating both of them and then trying to study, especially when it comes to the body, studying the body. What is this body? You can't study the body simply by analyzing a dead body in which spirit is absent, pure matter. Dead body is pure matter. Living body is not pure matter. Living body is matter plus consciousness. Like somebody pinches me, I feel pain. You pinch a dead body, there's no feeling of pain. There's no reaction. Correct? So there is a difference between a living body and dead body. But Shastra says actually there's no difference. Both are dead matter. Then how is it that a living body there is some reaction, dead body there's no reaction? So that's why the difficulty in the method of analyzing, studying, the way we study matter. Matter we can do experiments. Spirit, soul, or the living characteristics, you can't do any experiments. You can't do experiments. That's why sometimes some people say, oh, we study the effect of chanting. We did this experiment, that experiment. But all your experiments are on the material plane, on the material platform. Spirit is not actually on the material plane. Spirit is not something material. So how can spirit respond to some material experiments and tests? Like we say, the spirit is very, very tiny. So the scientists say, oh, it's so small, are we going to make advancement where we'll be able to see even smaller things than what we're able to see now? But even if they were to make a more powerful microscope or whatever, that thing which can be used to perceive smaller and smaller particles. But spirit is not a material particle. It's actually a spiritual particle. Spiritual particle means it has got spiritual characteristics. It doesn't have any material characteristics. That's what Krishna tries to impress all of us. The characteristics, the qualities of spirit are entirely different from the characteristics and qualities of matter. There's no common characteristics at all between matter and spirit. Absolutely nothing which is common. This is very important to understand in the second chapter. Very, very fundamental. So therefore, for studying what is spirit, for understanding what is spirit, only spiritual methods, only spiritual practices are the only way, and there's no other way. Just like even scientists, to study atomic physics, because atom is so small a particle that conventional physics, we study heat, light, we study mechanics, all those things are useless for atomic physics study. Totally useless. Tell me which of the experiments they do for studying heat, light, motion, mechanics, all that, what will be of use? It's totally useless. Even their theories are useless. Newton's laws of motion. It is useless for studying atomic physics. Those of you who have studied physics, you know this. Similarly, the dull scientists cannot understand, those who don't say we don't understand, we don't accept. That spirit is entirely different in quality characteristics. Therefore, to study spiritual particle, you require spiritual science. Just like your atomic physics. Completely different, no? Atomic physics. Same way, spiritual science is entirely different from material science. Yes. So Bhagavad Gita is spiritual science. Brahma Vidya. Bhagavad Gita has got two main topics. What is that? Brahma Vidya, Yoga Shastra. This is stated by Vyasadeva at the end of each chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the original Maharaj. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Krishna Arjuna Samvade Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama Prathamo Dhyaya. He says the end of the first chapter entitled Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Lamentation of Arjuna. Thus ends, Prabhupada writes at the end of each chapter, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose to the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the subject matter of the title he gives, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So, Vyasadeva, he ends by not only telling the title of the chapter, and it's the first chapter that's ending now, but he also says Bhagavad Gita is Upanishad. Bhagavad Gita is Upanishads. Brahma Vidyayam. This Upanishad is having two major subjects being discussed in this, elaborated in this, explained in this Upanishad. What are the two subjects? Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya is also called, in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Vidya is called Adhyatma Vidya. 10th chapter, where does Krishna say? The subject matter of the Bhagavad Gita is Adhyatma Vidya. Adhyatma Vidya, Atma Vidya, Brahma Vidya, same thing. Spiritual science. So open. Adhyatma. Did read the translation. Adhyatma Vidya Vidyana. Prabhupada translates that. 10:32. No? Okay, 10:32. 10 chapter 32nd verse. Adhyatma Vidya Vidyana.
Translation of all creations and the...
No, read that portion. Adhyatma Vidya.
For Arjuna, of all sciences and the spiritual science of the
Of
self.
all sciences and the spiritual science of the self. Adhyatma Vidya. So it's also called Brahma Vidya or Atma Vidya. So at the end of the first chapter, Prabhupada says, it's a very short purport, the last verse purport. First chapter, 46th verse purport. Can somebody read?
While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bow and arrows. Such a
kind
and
soft-hearted person
in devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge.
That is the subject, one of the main subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Vidya. So Vyasadeva says Brahma Vidya. Krishna says in the 10th chapter, Adhyatma Vidya. Elsewhere it is called Atma Vidya. So Atma Vidya, Brahma Vidya, Adhyatma Vidya, same thing. That is one subject. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, everywhere, the science of the spirit or spiritual science is actually described in detail. And the second subject is called Yoga Shastra, the science of yoga. That also has got a reference in 4th chapter, 1st verse spoken by Krishna. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham abhyayam. So yogam, Prabhupada translates very wonderfully, beautifully. Probably Prabhupada is the only one who gives that translation for that word yoga. Among English translations, nobody else would have given such a word for meaning. Read the word for meaning.
Yoga. Science of one's relationship to the Supreme.
The science of one's relationship to the Supreme. Yoga, one word, yoga. And the last purport of the 4th chapter, Prabhupada says, what does the first sentence say? Prabhupada say?
Last chapter.
Last verse of the 4th chapter. The yoga system described in this chapter. No, you read. Make you read. I keep on speaking, then it becomes a monologue. Here's some other voice. Somebody else can read?
The yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanatana Yoga.
It's called Sanatana Yoga. Or
eternal activities performed by the living entity.
Eternal activities performed by the living entity. Living entity is spirit, completely spiritual. So eternal activities means spiritual activities. Eternal activities, spiritual activities. Spiritual activities performed by the spirit soul. That is the yoga system that is described here in the 4th chapter. And the first verse says, that science of yoga, Krishna says, I instructed the sun god millions of years back. And that's the science of Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita contains Yoga Shastra, the science of yoga. What is yoga? The science of one's eternal relationship to the Supreme. Nobody can give this definition. Nobody can give this explanation. They give all speculated theories, all nonsense, rubbish. Only parampara understanding. Imam vivasvate yogam, that second verse. Evam parampara praptam. That science which Krishna instructed, science of one's relationship to the Supreme, the science of yoga, to sun god, was received in disciplined succession by the Rajarshis, the saintly kings. But in course of time, Kale Neha Mahata yogo nashya parandapa. The science was lost. And therefore, Arjuna, now I am instructing the same science. Go to the third verse.
This yoga,
Saevayam mayatedya yoga prokta puratanaha. The same ancient science which I spoke to sun god, now I am going to instruct you because it's lost. So I am going to revive that knowledge. So Prabhupada says in the purport, Bhagavad Gita was understood according to Parampara. But now there are so many speculators and all kinds of people who are writing so many books, translations, commentaries. When an American lady came to Prabhupada, visit Prabhupada, in the early days, in the west of 26 Second Avenue in New York, some boys and girls had helped Prabhupada, rent one storefront. The first center, the storefront in 26 Second Avenue, Matchless Gift storefront. So Prabhupada was writing, was preparing the Bhagavad Gita. So one lady came to meet him, and then she learned that Prabhupada is writing a translation and commentary for the Bhagavad Gita. Then she said, there are so many translations. Swamiji, you're writing one more? So then she kind of was asking, what is the need for one more when there's so many? So Prabhupada said, as far as I can see, none of them are actually presenting the Bhagavad Gita in the way it is actually explained by Krishna to Arjuna. So both in the preface, actually in the preface he says that, I think. American lady met me and asked, did I say here or somewhere else? The preface he says something about the need for the presentation. Is there, no? He doesn't mention the American lady here, somewhere else he mentions. No, in the beginning.
Before my presentation of Bhagavad Gita as it is, almost all the English edition of Bhagavad Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambition. But our attempt in presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So there is a need to present this Bhagavad Gita according to the Parampara understanding. So the Parampara understanding, some people ask, how does Swami say yoga means science of one's eternal relationship with the Supreme? Where is the meaning given in any of the dictionaries? See, their problem is, Sanskrit dictionary you open, you will get the various shades of meaning, no? That's what you generally do, no? In English also. If some different meaning is there for some word, one of those meanings should be there in the dictionary. So in Sanskrit dictionary, we don't find this meaning at all. Search. Nobody will find this meaning. So this is the way the Bhagavad Gita is understood, the meaning as received in the Parampara. The Parampara system. So therefore, even the Guru, you have to accept Guru coming in, Parampara. Then only we can get the correct knowledge, the correct understanding, and the proper way of practicing, even the practice also. So my point is that trying to understand the difference between chanting the name of the Supreme Lord and vibrating the tongue to produce any other sound. We cannot understand this difference intellectually by some analysis. Is this vibration something different? You try to do experiments. Hare, Krishna. Some people try to do all kinds of analysis, say some breathing difference and some pausing in between. You do pranayama also simultaneously when you're chanting Hare Krishna rhythmically, when you're singing. All kinds of, that's all bogus explanations. Nowhere in the scriptures these explanations are given, authentic scriptures. Just says, when you vibrate the tongue and produce the sound vibration, which is the holy name of the Supreme Lord, That sound is a spiritual sound. That sound, which is actually the name of the Lord, is a spiritual sound. Because the Lord has incarnated in the form of His holy name, and He appears on the tongue of the chanter. This also Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, eighth verse of the 12th chapter. Please read the purport. So to understand this Ajamila pastime, that's why Prabhupada says Bhagavad Gita is a preliminary study of the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam says Ajamila chanted somehow the holy name, therefore he was saved. Correct? Bhagavad Gita explains how the chanting of the holy name is different than simply vibrating the tongue to produce any other sound.
The holy name of the Lord and the Lord are not different. Therefore, when a devotee chants Hare Krishna, Krishna and his internal potency are dancing on the tongue of the devotee.
Krishna and his internal potency are dancing on the tongue of the devotee. Now hear this. What happened when Ajamila called out, Narayana? So, Krishna and his internal potency are dancing on the tongue of devotee. That was proven in the case of Ajamila. Vishnu disappeared. Vishnu belonged to the internal potency of Vishnu or Krishna. So they appeared. You understand? So unless you have studied Bhagavad Gita, you cannot make sense of what is told in the Bhagavatam. Vishnu has appeared. You see?
But he was not a devotee.
Who?
Ajamila.
Huh?
But
Oh, here it says devotee. When the devotee chants means, who will chant Hare Krishna other than devotees? Non-devotees will say no many nonsense. Like there is one cartoon, Prabhupada says, a lady who became a devotee, she is telling her husband, chant, chant, chant. He says, can't. Chant. But he'll say, I cannot chant. You see? So who will chant? Only devotees will chant. That's why Prabhupada said. But it's not that it's only meant for devotees. No, it's not only meant for devotees. Anybody can chant. Anybody can chant. Good point. It says only, it says devotee chants. But it doesn't mean only when devotees chant, it doesn't say that. So, it's not like that. Anybody can chant. Krishna says anyone can become a devotee. Anyone can become a devotee. Anybody who chants Hare Krishna. What does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? Anyone who chants the holy name, the name of God even once is a devotee. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Anyone who chants even once the name of the Supreme Lord is a devotee. So, devotional service begins with chanting the holy name. That's why the stress for chanting the holy name. Especially in this Kali Yuga. But it's not restricted only to Kali Yuga. It is applicable for all ages, all times, all persons, all places. It is absolute. This chanting of the holy name as the means of deliverance is absolute. All spiritual processes are absolute. But particularly this chanting is so simple. Because everyone vibrates the tongue for producing some sound or the other, including animals and birds. That's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered even the animals in the Jharikanda forest. Because he made them chant the holy name. Prabhupada says, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Supreme Lord, so we can make the animals chant and dance. We cannot do that. But we can at least make the human beings chant and then they can be delivered. So therefore, kindly distribute this holy name among all peoples in the world, all people in the world. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is Prithvi te acheyat nagaradi grama sarvatra prachara hoimen. All towns and villages, I mean, wherever people are living, human beings are living, anywhere, everywhere, on the surface of this globe, everyone can be delivered simply if they take to chanting Hare Krishna. So therefore, and the glory of the holy name, the potency of the holy name is clearly described in the Bhagavatam, especially in the section on Ajamila. Like yesterday I read that the Vishnudutas explained this to the Yamadutas. Even one chants jokingly, one chants negligently, it works. Then why is there consideration of offenses in chanting Hare Krishna? It anyway works. However you chant, it works. The difference is very important to understand. Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you want to awaken your dormant love for Krishna, you should chant offenselessly. So, anyhow one chants, one is free from sin. Anyhow one chants, one is free from sin. But to stop sinning, so that we come to a pure state of being sinless, our chanting will not awaken our dormant Krishna consciousness. So that's why there are 3 stages of chanting. The beginning is, of course, we don't know what is offense. We just get told to chant, we chant. So we are in ignorance, therefore we are committing offenses. Ignorance, we also commit sins. I told you yesterday, difference between offense and sin. Offense is always on the spiritual platform. Sin is on the material platform. So anyway, we don't know all these platforms and all that. When we start chanting, we chant. But then we are told, for chanting to be more effective, you should avoid sinful activities, of which four pillars of sinful life in Kali Yuga should be certainly avoided. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit. So when a person begins chanting, you don't say, if you have to give up meat and then only you chant. No. Or you have to give up these sinful activities. No. Just chant. That's all. But after some time we say, you want to progress further in chanting, then you should also give up sinful activities. And giving up sinful activities begins with giving up these 4 kinds of sins. Why? Why these 4 kinds of sins are particularly mentioned as, regulative principles we will follow for the chanting to be more effective? Because Kali resides in these 4 places. The history is given in the Bhagavatam first canto. The history is given. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yesham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam. 7 point. What is the number?
27.
Huh? 27. Please look. See again, preliminary study of the Bhagavatam is Bhagavad Gita. Or Bhagavatam is the advanced study of Bhagavad Gita. 28. 7.28. Krishna says, what is the translation?
Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated.
Sinful actions are completely eradicated. Antagatam papam. So for this antagatam papam to happen, the way is chanting Hare Krishna. The easy way is chanting Hare Krishna. But then we cannot keep on chanting at the same time, after we are cleansed, again become contaminated by sinful reaction by again committing sin. So to stop sinning, how can we stop sinning? So we have to become enlightened. This also Srila Rupa Goswami analyzes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. What is the cause for some person to act sinfully, to perform sinful activities? The root cause of sin, Sri Rupa Goswami analyzes, is ignorance. The root cause of sin. So sins can be completely eradicated if one becomes enlightened. One becomes enlightened in transcendental knowledge. All this explains in Bhagavad Gita also. The 3rd chapter, Krishna says that work has to be performed as sacrifice to Vishnu. Otherwise, work binds one to the material world. So, perform all activities as sacrifice to Vishnu. And the details of those different types of sacrifice given in the 4th chapter, the chapter on transcendental knowledge. So while describing the different types of sacrifice a person can perform, Krishna explains all kinds of sacrifices ultimately end in sacrifice of knowledge. Jnana yajna. Anything you want to ask? No. Jnana yajna. Sacrifice of knowledge. But sacrifice of knowledge is not the meaning of Jnana Yajna. Jnana Yajna means sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. Sacrifice for what? For the sake of what? For what is the goal of such sacrifices done? Of course, the first goal of performing work as sacrifices, I become free from all kinds of reactions. I become liberated. I become free from material bondage. But it is a higher purpose of performing sacrifice. What is that? To become enlightened in transcendental knowledge. Why enlightenment is necessary? Because then we stop sinning. We stop sinning. We stop performing any sinful activities. We become antagatam papam, free from all sinful actions. What is the defect of cleansing oneself of sinful reactions and again committing sin? What's the wrong there? That is explained in the beginning of the 6th canto, before this Ajamila pastime I described briefly yesterday. The process of karma is like an elephant bath. What is that? Elephant cleanses itself and comes out of the reservoir of water, huge reservoir of water, and sprinkles dirt all over its body. So what's the use of cleansing? So a person who keeps on committing sin after becoming free from the reactions to avoid suffering, such a person can never actually get out of material existence. So perpetually the person will be in material existence. Repetition of birth and death will continue. So to stop this repetition of birth and death, one has to stop sinning. Not difficult to understand, very simple. To stop sinning requires enlightenment, transcendental spiritual knowledge. That spiritual knowledge is possible if one actually progresses from performing this yajna, merely performing yajna, sacrifice, to come to the point of the perfection of all such sacrifices is enlightenment in transcendental knowledge. And that happens when one actually approaches a bona fide spiritual master and under his guidance performs sacrifice to Vishnu according to his directions. Then a person makes progress from merely performing sacrifice in order to free oneself from bondage to coming to the stage of transcendental enlightenment and transcendental knowledge, where one is fixed up on the spiritual plane and never again has to actually come down to the material platform of actually performing reactionary work. fruitive activities. So fruitive activities will be stopped only when under the direction and guidance of a bona fide spiritual master one performs this yajna. So yajna performance has to be guided, has to be directed, has to be instructed by a bona fide spiritual master. That's why in the 4th chapter Krishna says, Tad vidhi, these various types of sacrifices are there. Which sacrifice is suitable for whom? And how should one perform a particular sacrifice? For what purpose? Ultimately, for what purpose the sacrifice should be performed? Merely for freeing oneself from all reactions of bondage, or some higher purpose is also there? The higher purpose is instructed by the bona fide spiritual master. You see? Why are there so many types of sacrifices? Who can explain? And which sacrifice who has to do? And ultimately, what is the final goal of all these sacrifices? Have they got a common goal? Yes. Even though there are variety of sacrifices, all are meant for freeing us from material reactions, yes. But the final goal and the common thread of all the sacrifices is enlightenment in transcendental knowledge, by which we not only become free from reactions, but we also elevate ourselves to the spiritual platform. On the spiritual platform, there is no reactions for any activities, and we are actually able to revive our spiritual life. We are able to revive our spiritual life. We transcend material activities and material existence. So this is explained in the 4th chapter. You see? In the Ajamila pastime, okay, now I come to the 6:30. Okay. Half an hour more. We'll have 45 minutes we'll take. We started 15 minutes late. So Ajamila pastime, yesterday I described till Ajamila was freed. Okay. Now, let's hear what happened after Ajamila was freed. This is the last portion. Having been released from the nooses of Yamaraj's servants, the Brahmana Ajamila, now free from fear, came to his senses and immediately offered obeisances to the Vishnudutas by bowing his head at their lotus feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraj. Then, Shukadeva Goswami is describing, the order carries the Supreme Personality of God, Vishnuduta, saw that Ajamila was attempting to say something, and thus they suddenly disappeared from his presence. They came for a specific purpose and they disappeared. Ajamila could not speak to them. After Yamadutas went away, because they could not take away Ajamila. Ajamila was free. Then the Vishnudutas immediately disappeared. So then Shukadeva Goswami describes, after hearing the discourses between the Yamadutas and Vishnudutas, Ajamila could understand the religious principles that act under the 3 modes of material nature. This is called spiritual enlightenment. These principles are mentioned in the 3 Vedas. This is also told in the Bhagavad Gita. Traigunya Vishaya Veda. These principles, religious principles that act under the modes of nature, are described as Traigunya Vishaya Veda. In the Bhagavad Gita, here it said, these principles are mentioned in the 3 Vedas. He could also understand the transcendental religious principles which are above the modes of material nature and which concern the relationship between the living being and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what Krishna tells Arjuna. I am instructing you in the science of yoga, which is describing the transcendental relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. See, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita are the same subject matter. But here, very, very basic principles are there, here details are there. Furthermore, Ajamila heard glorification of the name, fame, qualities, and pastimes, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Particularly, he heard the glories of the holy name, chanting the holy name. He thus became a perfectly pure devotee. He could then remember his past sinful activities, which he greatly regretted having performed. Because of a moment's association with devotees, with Vishnu Dutas, Ajamila detached himself from the material conception of life and determination. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says the same thing. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Lava means a very, very small, tiny fraction of a second. It's a moment. So, moment's association with devotees, sadhus. Sarva Siddhi Hoy, one is all perfection. So, Ajamila became detached from the material conception of life, with determination. Thus, free from all material attraction, he immediately started for Haridwar. Started for a holy place. In Haridwar, Ajamila took shelter at a Vishnu temple where he executed the process of Bhakti Yoga. He controlled his senses and fully applied his mind in the service of the Lord. Ajamila fully engaged in devotional service. Thus, he detached his mind from the process of sense gratification and became fully absorbed in thinking of the form of the Lord. When his intelligence and mind were fixed upon the form of the Lord, the Brahmana Ajamila once again saw before him the four celestial persons, the four Vishnudutas came again. He could understand that they were those he had seen previously, and thus he offered them his obeisances by bowing down before them. Upon seeing the Vishnudutas, Ajamila gave up his material body at Haridwar on the bank of the Ganges. He regained his original spiritual body, which is a body appropriate for an associate of the Lord. Accompanied by the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, Ajamila boarded an airplane made of gold. Passing through the airways, he went directly to the abode of Lord Vishnu, the husband of the goddess of fortune. I am not reading all the verses in the Bhagavatam, lot more details are there. I'm just summarizing the whole thing. You can read the 6th canto, and there are also purports. Not only I'm just reading the verses, there are purports. And there are more verses than this, describing so many details. I'm summarizing. Ajamila was a Brahmana who, because of bad association, had given up all Brahmanical culture and religious principles. Becoming most fallen, this Shukadeva Goswami describing. Becoming most fallen, he stole, drank, performed other abominable activities. He even kept a prostitute. Thus, he was destined to be carried away to hell by the order carriers of Yamaraj. But he was immediately rescued simply by a glimpse of chanting the holy name Narayana. See the power of chanting the holy name. Why we stress, please chant, please chant, please chant. Therefore, one who desires freedom from material bondage should adopt the process of chanting and glorifying the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at whose feet all the holy places stand. One cannot derive the proper benefit from other methods such as pious atonement, speculative knowledge, meditation, mystic yoga, because even after following such methods, one takes to fruitive activities again, unable to control his mind, which is contaminated by the base qualities of nature, namely passion and ignorance. So this is what Shukadeva Goswami explained to Parikshit Maharaj in the beginning of the 6th canto, 1st chapter. To illustrate the power of Bhakti Yoga, he narrated the Ajamila pastime. Now he is concluding that. The same conclusion which he gave earlier, he is repeating it, that one cannot derive the same benefit as one derives by chanting the holy name by other methods such as atonement, speculative knowledge, meditation, mystic yoga, this karma, jnana, and dhyana yoga or ashtanga yoga, you cannot get the same benefit. Because even if one takes to those methods and purifies or becomes sinless, still there's every possibility to again take to fruitive activities, unable to control the mind, which is always contaminated by passion and ignorance. Rajogunantamo. So in the first canto, second chapter, Sutta Goswami begins to answer the first 6 questions of the sages of Naimisharanya, the beginning of the Bhagavatam. So he first mentions the power and the importance of devotion, pure devotional service. He says, Shrunvatam swakatha Krishnaha punya shravana kirtanaha hridyantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti suritsatam. Simply by taking to pure devotional service, one immediately purifies the heart of all material contamination. And then he says, Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Very quickly one progresses in this purification process whereby one becomes fixed up in devotional service. And having fixed up, tada rajastamo bhava kamalobha dayaschaye. One becomes first of all purified in the consciousness, that is in the mind, of these 2 base qualities, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, which is the prime cause for our taking to fruitive activities in which one is bound to commit sin. See, this is very carefully analyzed here. Krishna says, Eshanto antagatam papam. But how do you become free from sin? Your mind has to be purified of these 2 base qualities, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. And that happens only by devotional service. Completely cleansed. No more Rajoguna Tamoguna. That is bhakti. That is the power of bhakti. Pure devotional service. And in pure devotional service, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out, there are 9 ways of executing pure devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Marchanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Satyam, Atmanvidam. But of all these processes, Shravanam, Kirtanam is simple, powerful, effective, practical for us now. Shravanam, Kirtanam. And even Shravanam, Kirtanam, we can perform hearing and glorifying or chanting the name, form, qualities, pastimes of the Supreme Personality of God. Of all those types of hearing and chanting, the simplest is hearing and chanting the holy name of the Supreme, which is very evident in the Ajamila pastime. The name. After we start chanting the name, other things follow automatically. What is that? Bhagavad Shravan, hearing or reciting the Srimad Bhagavad, and the other activities of devotional service will follow. But it begins with the holy name, especially in Kali Yuga. And it is very, very easy, very practical, very effective, and very simple. To chant, you just require to vibrate the tongue, and to hear, you got your ears. You vibrate the tongue, produce sound, and hear with your ears. Finished. Oh, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So then he concludes by telling, because this very confidential historical narration has the potency to vanquish all sinful reactions, one who hears or describes it with faith and devotion is no longer doomed to hellish life, regardless of his having a material body and regardless of how sinful he may have been, simply by hearing this Ajamila pastime. That's the power of Shukadeva Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, narrating this Ajamila pastime. And Vyasadeva mercifully recorded this for posterity. Shukadeva Goswami spoke once to Parikshit Maharaj. So many people took advantage. Some great personalities from all over the universe, they all arrived there and sat and heard around Parikshit Maharaj. They all got the benefit of hearing. What about us? So Vyasadeva recorded. And Vyasadeva recorded the Bhagavatam and passed it down in Parampara. And in Parampara, Prabhupada is bringing that same Bhagavatam, which Shukadeva Goswami described to Parikshit. The same Bhagavatam Prabhupada is presenting us in English language. So we also can hear, we also can read. And the benefit is, one who hears or describes it with faith and devotion is no longer doomed to hellish life, regardless of having a material body, or regardless of how sinful he may have been. Indeed, the Yamadutas who carry the orders of Yamaraj do not approach him even to see him. Of course, the third chapter, I don't have time to go into the third chapter of this Ajamila pastime. The Yamadutas, what happens when they go to Yamaraj and complain that we've never been stopped? And this sinful Ajamila, we try to get him. And then we are told that he is already atoned for all the sinful reactions. We don't see any atonement at all that he has done. Even to the last moment he was, before his death, he was with his prostitute wife, enjoying with his children. And then we were told, no, he has atoned for all the sinful reactions. You cannot take him. With some 4 people who are, you don't know who they are, restored. So we want to know why we restored. How has Ajamila become purified? Not a candidate for punishment. So there's a whole description of the discussion about Ajamila's case by Yamaraj, instructing the Yamadutas. That's another very important chapter. There's so many things are there. So here, it is said briefly, Shukadeva Goswami is mentioned here, he describes the details in the conversation between Yamadutas and Yamaraj. There Yamaraj says, never approach anybody who's a devotee of Vishnu. Who's a devotee of Vishnu? Some or the other, if they are chanting the name of Vishnu, some or the other, if they are in any way connected with Vishnu, performing any type of devotional service to Vishnu. So don't even go near them. Don't even approach them, regardless of how many sinful activities they might have done. Never go near them. So that's what he's telling here. If one, indeed the Yamadutas who carry out the orders of Yamaraj do not approach him even to see him. After giving up his body, such a person returns home back to Godhead, where he is very respectfully received and worshipped. This is the result of chanting and hearing the holy name, hearing and chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord. You see? So now, the final words of this chapter. While suffering at the time of death, Ajamila chanted the holy name of the Lord, and although the chanting was directed toward his son, he nevertheless returned home back to Godhead. Therefore, if one faithfully and inoffensively chants the holy name of the Lord, where is the doubt that he will return to Godhead? This is what Shukadeva Goswami is instructing all of us. So take to the chanting of the holy name faithfully and inoffensively. So Prabhupada says, try to avoid the offenses and chant with faith and devotion. Shraddha and Bhakti, without offenses. Please chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and there is no doubt that you will go back to God. Just like Ajamila. Okay, so I have finished speaking what I have to say. Now we can ask Fourth chapter.
Fourth chapter.
Ending.
In the first verse, is also saying, Avyayam, Proktamanam, Avyayam. Avyayam, is that?
Imperishable signs.
Imperishable
Imperishable
signs. Is that the
signs.
same as eternal signs, which is Sanatana Yoga?
Yeah,
They're the
yeah,
same.
yeah.
Avyayam Yoga, Sanatana Yoga, same.
Yeah. Nothing but Bhakti Yoga. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Well, I'm little curious to know more about spiritual world.
There is a whole description of the spiritual world in Brahma Samhita. There's a description in 15th chapter of the 3rd canto, a description of the kingdom of God. Please write down 3.15, read that. And a very, very wonderful purport in which Prabhupada describes the kingdom of God. Can you just check if you got database? Adi Leela, 5th chapter, 22nd verse purport. Okay, tell me what is the verse 5.22? 5.22, Adi Leela. Chintamani Prakriti, yes. So write down the purport to Adi Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, 5th chapter, 22nd verse. It's a long purport, 10-page purport in the printed book. There Prabhupada gives a wonderful description of the kingdom of God. So nicely he explains. Wonderful, wonderful. Very beautiful description. In detail Prabhupada gives a description. Many places Prabhupada is described, but here he briefly is described in one purport in Bhagavad Gita also. Parastasmatu bhavam. Sir, what is that? 8.20.
Krishna's superior spiritual energy is transcendental and eternal. It is beyond all the changes of material nature, which is manifest and annihilated during the days and nights of Brahma. Krishna's superior energy is completely opposite in quality to material nature. Superior and inferior nature are explained in the 7th chapter.
Does it say from the kingdom of God?
The next one, the superior abode of the personality of Godhead Krishna is described in the Brahma Samhita as Chintamani Dham, a place where all desires are fulfilled. The supreme abode of Lord Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavana, is full of palaces made up of
So
touchstones.
briefly Prabhupada describes here.
That is the next
8.20, huh?
No, Avyakto Aksharati Yuktas.
Oh, that one, huh?
8.21.
8.21 briefly described, elaborated in 3.15, 3rd canto, 15th chapter. Read all the verses. And also the purport, 5.22 of Adi Leela. Any other question? Yeah.
So I've had the experience sometimes where people hear about the spiritual world being a place where there's no misery. And they say, well, if it was just happiness all the time, then it would be boring. So is there some kind of variety?
Yeah, the thing is, they are thinking happiness means material happiness. So material happiness is relative happiness. So material happiness becomes boring if there is no misery. It's a fact. And material happiness is not real happiness according to scriptures, described in Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Bhagavad Gita explains what is material happiness. Read that translation, 5.22. So to explain to them what is material happiness. It is a sensation which is due to contact with the senses and the sense objects. Okay? So the sensation is interpreted by some people under certain conditions as pleasure, and some other people under the same conditions or different conditions as pain. I am a vegetarian. I go to the market to buy some vegetables. In India it happens sometimes. The vegetable market ends and the fish market starts. So the border is there. I can't stand the smell. I'm a vegetarian, so I can't stand the smell of fish. Before coming to Krishna consciousness, describing. So the fish eaters, so nice smell, how great. They identify the smell and say, so nice. And they even have names for this variety of fish. That variety. I like this, I don't like that so much. I like this. Everything is very welcome for them, the smell. So this is material pleasure and pain. So for the hog, it is rolling in the gutter, filth, and it's eating the filth also. Not only rolling it, enjoying, it's also eating the filth. But for human beings, it's so abominable. Filth is so abominable. So the same thing. It's all related. So that 5.22 explains. 5.22?
Will you read the translation?
No, I'm just going to 5.22, read the translation. So material happiness, spiritual happiness is also described in the Bhagavad Gita. 6.20 to 22. Yam labdha chapram. Yes. 6.20 to 23, Krishna describes what is that spiritual happiness. Sukham atyantikam yattad buddhigrayam atindriyam. Vediyatuna chaivayam. It's a long explanation, beautiful purport by Prabhupada. Please read that to explain, to understand what is, and positively describing what is spiritual happiness. Material happiness is not real happiness. 5.22. 6.20 to 23 is what is spiritual happiness, positive description. 6.20 to 23. Yes, next question.
You said root cause of the sin is ignorance.
Ignorance. That's what Rupa Goswami says.
Yes, and ignorance can be completely eradicated by
Enlightenment in transcendental knowledge by
Transcendental.
a bona fide spiritual master. That is in the fourth chapter. Fourth chapter itself. It's about transcendental knowledge, enlightenment,
Right.
by sacrifice. So how does it happen by sacrifice? That is described. Only if you approach a bona fide spiritual master, surrender to him and serve him and inquire from him. And his qualification is Jnaninaha Tattvadarshinaha. He should be himself enlightened, self-realized, and he should be fixed up in transcendental knowledge. Realized soul, fixed up in transcendental knowledge. That's a devotee, pure devotee. In other words, pure devotee. Then he can, Upadekshanti, he will instruct him. Okay. Okay. Next question. Yeah.
Maharaj, I have a question related to Sanjaya. I believe he might be like a devotee of the Lord, but why does he fight on the side of the Kauravas?
Who?
Sanjaya?
He is not fighting.
I'm not fighting, but like he
He is the secretary of Dhritarashtra, that's all.
Yes, that's it.
That's all. He is not fighting. Secretary of Dhritarashtra. But he is a devotee. Student of Vyasadeva. He's a devotee, even though he's secretary of Dhritarashtra. Yes, any other question?
Krishna Maharaj. The verse that we read, 12.8, in that when a devotee chants Hare Krishna, Krishna and his internal potency are dancing on the tongue.
That internal potency is reference to Radharani. Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna means Radha Krishna. So Radha and Krishna are both dancing on the tongue of the devotee. That's what it means.
So internal potency refers
Internal potency means Radharani in this particular context. Hare Krishna context. Yes, any other question? Okay, one more thing I wanted to also say Just like Ajamila was saved by the Vishnu Dutas, all of us are saved by Prabhupada. Even though we might not have been in such a bad shape as Ajamila, still, we were ignorant about sinful activities. Correct? We were ignorant about sinful activities. We were ignorant about the power of chanting the holy name, etc. So Prabhupada has rescued us. And now Prabhupada has given us the opportunity. Like Ajamila got the opportunity to be freed from sinful activities. Then what did he do? Immediately went to a holy place to take shelter of the Supreme Lord in a temple. So Prabhupada has opened temples everywhere. Take shelter of Vishnu or Krishna in a temple. And then chant Hare Krishna. And then go back to that. Exactly what happened to Ajamila is actually applicable to us also. What did Ajamila do? He went and chanted. But stopping all sinful activities. So he stopped. And then the Vishnutas came again. For what? Taking him back to God. So Prabhupada has come. Prabhupada will come again. Rather, Prabhupada doesn't have to come again. Prabhupada is always present. He's always present and just waiting to take us back to Godhead when we perfect our chanting. We chant. What did Shukadeva Goswami say? With faith and inoffensively. With faith and devotion and inoffensively. So 3 stages of chanting. I began to mention that, but I stopped. I got diverted. So offensive stage where we don't know so much what is sin, exactly what is offense. Then the second stage is when we become knowledgeable. There is sin and there is offense. So we try to avoid the sins by following 4 related principles. And we try to avoid offenses by, following Vaishnava etiquette. Vaishnava etiquette is the way of avoiding offenses, not offending Vishnu by blaspheming scriptures, criticizing devotees, by not misinterpreting the holy name, by not describing the glories of the holy name to faithless persons. You see? So we avoid these offenses also. We avoid sin, we avoid offenses. That's the second stage called clearing stage, where we understand and we sincerely try to avoid offenses, and we of course give up sinful activities also. So, giving up sinful activities, Krishna doesn't say only 4 types of sins you have to give up. All types of sins we have to give up. Antagatam papam. Completely sinless way to become. Now to be eligible to go back to God. So completely sinless, first you stop these 4 things, Prabhupada says. And then on the strength of chanting Hare Krishna, we can stop all sinful activities. We can become completely sinless by stopping all sinful activities. How does it work? Actually, we replace all material activities with spiritual activities. In material activities, there's always a possibility, even though we may try to do only materially pious activities, and we want to avoid sinful activities. We understand sinful activities are the cause of our suffering, but as long as we are on the platform 3 gunas, Rajoguna and Tamoguna always impel us to do sinful activities. Sattva-guna, the influence is to perform pious activities. Rajoguna and Tamoguna, the influence is to perform sinful activities. So, rise above all the 3 gunas. Rise above all the 3 gunas. And Bhagavad Gita Krishna says, one who is engaged in my pure devotional service at once transcends the three gunas and comes to the spiritual platform. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetan brahma bhuyaya kartate. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kanchati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labdhe para. So what is that 14.26? What is that number? Mam chayo avyabhicharena.
One who engages in full
Wait, number.
26.
26, 14.26. Krishna says, simply by engaging in pure devotional service, one can come to the spiritual platform. So coming to the spiritual platform, simply chant Hare Krishna. But chant to remain on the spiritual platform. Now what is happening? We chant, we rise to the spiritual platform, we again perform material activities of the three gunas, and come down to the material platform. On the material platform, the danger is there. We may commit sins or we may commit even offenses. Of course, on a material platform, there is no consideration of offense, but we are simultaneously engaged in chanting Hare Krishna. Correct? So, our chanting Hare Krishna, there is a possibility of offense because we are not fixed up on the spiritual platform, or rather I would say, we are not purified of all material desires. We are not purified of all material desires. Till we become free from all material desires, there is a possibility we may offend others, especially devotees. So to avoid the possibility of committing offenses, we have to purify our heart of all material desires. Vishaya chadiya serase majiya mukhe bolo hari hari. Narottam Das Thakur. No, Lochan Das Thakur. Parama karuna pahudui jana nitai gaura chandra. Sabhavatar sara shiromani kevala ananda kanda. Now, our Acharya's songs are so wonderful that all this Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, so much of detailed explanation of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, they have summarized in some 2 lines, 4 lines, 8 lines, some few songs. Everything is there. The philosophy is very simple way it's explained. So actually learn this Vaishnava songs, read the meaning, and devotees sing it very melodiously, so keep hearing, and also you try to follow these Vaishnavacharya songs along with Hare Krishna Kirtan, Vaishnavacharya's Kirtan. So Lochan Das Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur. Narottam Das Thakur says, when will Lord Nityananda be merciful to me so that I become free from all these material desires? So mercy of Nityananda is very important for becoming free from all material desires. Otherwise material desires keep on bothering us. In the material world, kingdom of Maya, you see, is surrounded by millions and billions of sense objects. So somewhere we fall victim of allurement of some material object. What happened to Ajamila? Some prostitute is busy with some other nonsensical customer, but she's just gone to get some flowers and fruits and grass and all that for us. He used to do that. It's not explained there. You can understand. He used to do it every day. There was no marketplace those days. You would go and get some. If in your house you don't have the flowers, you go to the nearby place where flowers are available, the forest somewhere, or outside the village. You would have gone there to get something, and on the way he saw a prostitute completely bewildered. So this protection against bewilderment of Maya is when one takes shelter of a spiritual master and firmly holds on to his instructions. Then you cannot be bewildered. Prabhupada writes in one purport of the Ajamila Upakhyan portion describing Ajamila's pastime, that we should consider Ajamila saw in the Satya Yuga, very rare instance that a Brahmana will become bewildered, and that too, he chanced to see one prostitute. Chanced to see. And he completely became bewildered and he lost his grammatical, etc. So we should consider the position of our devotees, especially in cities like New York, where women walk half naked. So they see prostitutes or prostitute-like, scenes every day. It's common. So it says, Prabhupada says, simply by chanting Hare Krishna and firmly holding on to the principles of Krishna consciousness and the association of devotees, one is perfectly safe and immune in all circumstances. That's how even now there are so many devotees in America. After having come in contact with Krishna consciousness, still devotees are nicely practicing. It is because they are chanting Hare Krishna, holding on firmly to Prabhupada. That's the only way, that's the fact actually. Otherwise, no possibility in this hellish place. There's no possibility of becoming devotee, and somebody somehow takes to Krishna consciousness, no possibility of remaining a devotee. In Satya Yuga, in those ideal conditions, Ajamila got bewildered. Kali Yuga, it's like we are easy victims for Maya. Right? So still, we don't have to worry. It's Kali Yuga and the conditions are much worse. The worst conditions of the 4 Yugas. But still, we don't have to fear because we got the holy name and we got Prabhupada, Vishnuduta. Like Vishnuduta saved Ajamila, Prabhupada has saved us and continues to save others who are not yet saved. Through his movement, through his sincere followers, through his books, you see, through his teachings, Prabhupada continues. Vishnudutas came, saved Ajamila, went back. But Prabhupada, no. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers are not like that. They have come and they have established a mission to save conditioned souls, take them back to God. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started this mission, Krishna consciousness movement. And he instructed his followers. Janma sarthaka kori karo paropakar. You make your life successful and you also do paropakar, do some welfare activity of sharing this knowledge with others. Preach Krishna consciousness to others and save them also. Okay, we close. Anybody has got any last question? Yes.
Actually, I have a question on the Bhagavatam last. That in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna Vidama had withdrawn all his senses and fixed on the Lord. And but there are so many soldiers also have died there.
And they also got liberation and they became fixed up in their original position because of Krishna's presence on the battlefield. Yeah.
So
that is significant, yeah. So for us, Krishna is present as the holy name. Yes. Krishna is present as the holy name. So we can also be delivered. And we can go back to God simply because of the Hare Krishna mantra. So practice chanting. Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you very much for patiently Prasad.